do not panic if we're down 20-0, 21-0 or something after the first quarter, because it's a long game. We're going to score points. You're true that Deg's boy Drew Hare, probably I think they said two of the best 5-10 games or 2 game stretches or whatever he's had, and obviously the first 2 games of this year he's got 600 something yards, and that's a lot more than he started with the last couple of years, and a lot more than even Lynch started with his first couple games. Reminds me of how well Harnish played at the beginning of his last year, but we got to get the running game going, and we got to shore up the defense. My whole hope here is that we don't get beat up, because I'm pretty sure Boston College is going to be let down to play us versus Florida State, and I don't want to make one loss become 2. And I would love for Ohio State to kind of struggle for a little bit so that they beat the doors off of PJ next week. Everybody is 100% invested in PJ getting his ass kicked. I can't believe that we had to hear somebody this week, and I got texted this from those guys, that people were saying Michigan State deserves to be 3 because they have 2 quality wins so far over two quality programs. I don't understand why PJ's brainwashed the entire country into thinking that they have a good program now, but
they're an elite program.
Yeah, elites. How you doing today?
Elite. There's actually a local article written this week after the loss, where the local Kalamazoo beat writer called out Western and PJ Fleck for not being elite.
I like
talking
it.
Like they're elite.
I love it, and that's good. And I'm hoping that I think he'll get some of that if they're not going to beat Ohio State, so they're probably going to be 2-2. If they lose a game early in the MAC and it's not to Toledo, they lose to somebody else, and it's pretty clear they're not going to contend, and all of a sudden you're looking at, they should have won, they had us on the ropes to win it, and then a year later they're supposed to be better, and I hear all this crap about how they're so young and that they're just coming together, and it's like, look, I get that he tore it down, I get that, they thought that Cuban had done a terrible job his last couple of years there, but until they actually do something like, achieve something, win a bowl game even, win a division, anything, beat somebody out of conference that is worth anything. I mean, they've lost to Nicholls State. They got blown out by Georgia Southern, who got shut out the week before. I'm enjoying the start for them this year because I was pretty sick of the preseason.
No, I totally agree, and they're getting way too much credit for this game against Michigan State. Dan Antonio has a history of starting slow for State. Hell, 2 years ago when Western was absolute garbage, when they went 1-11.
Oh yeah.
It was like an 11-point game at State.
Yeah, that was the Storm game. Yeah, I remember, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
And with Oregon, they had Oregon coming up, so they weren't going to show too much. But they celebrate the State.
Yeah.
Games.
Well, I'm pretty convinced that they don't ever rub the score in those games. They don't ever try to run it up, and that's the reason. So I think that was a little bit of an anomaly. Obviously the cheesy ass pregame speech and all that kind of stuff. Chris was fired up last week. He was
still waiting for him to pick her up.
Yeah. Chris is a little disappointed that we couldn't see his sign last week that said "sink the boat." So I had to make sure we mentioned that. He's out in Cal. He might be the most West Coast Western Michigan hater currently there is. I'm pretty sure. Anybody talks about Western Michigan east of Illinois, west of Illinois, and he's on it. So what do you got your pick of the week? You already got it, or either got her in tea of the week? What is it?
Like I said, it's off to an 0-2 start, 2.5 technically because I gave 2 picks last week.
Well, Tennessee was tough.
It was actually funny. Late in the third quarter of that Tennessee game, which was my pick last week. And Michigan State, Oregon had just started, and it was each team had an early score. I was about to send out a text about how the Geiger guarantee had jumped out, and obviously that turned out to be premature. And then come Sunday with the Lions game, there was a lot of premature texting going on during that.
I was waiting for the Trevor. I was waiting for the Trevor one after the Bears loss and early in the Lions game. When it was 21-3, I told Smiley, I said, I don't think, because you've mellowed much over the years than you used to, but Trevor has not mellowed. He finds the absolute first chance he can to say something, and I was anticipating a Detroit text, and then San Diego scored pretty pretty soon after that, and I thought, okay, maybe we'll have to wait a few hours.
Yep.
I don't think he enjoyed the .2 loss on Monday night, though. I'm pretty sure he had a few texts teed up for that one.
He definitely had a few texts teed up. He always has texts teed up.
Well, when you don't have employment, and then.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully that happens.
What do you got? Who's your pick?
I do have the pick ready. First off, I forgot to mention this earlier, but hello Singapore, hello to the Rags and the Rags.
Hey, and that's another reason. Yeah, San Diego State Mountain West Conference. I mean, they're going to be very invested in. We had over 200 views on the Mountain West preview for some unknown reason.
But I do have the pick here. I went with.
Oh wow! You're believing. Dino Babers, you're all in. You're all in on the. I went back and forth on that.
It's the first game at the Dwight Perry Stadium this
year.
Oh,
that's true. That is true. I went back and forth on that game.
Just having the game against Tennessee, I think it showed me a little bit more than Memphis' win over Kansas.
True.
Or, obviously Maryland's garbage too. Kansas is garbage. I just like I think Bowling Green's going to put up a lot of points. Memphis will as well, but I'm going to take the extra points with the Bowling Green's getting at home. Yeah,
it was definitely a back and forth pick for me on them. I like Memphis a lot. I really like Memphis' coach. The road game and giving points. I wish the line was flipped.
Yep.
I think Bowling Green is going to be very. I hate that quarterback so much.
Yeah.
I just hate that he's bald and he's got the facial hair. And I hate what he did to us in the MAC title game. So if he gets nicked up before the years, but Dino Babers obviously a really good coach. I would anticipate this could be it for Dino Babers at Bowling Green because they're probably going to end up with 9 or 10 wins, and I'm pretty sure somebody's gonna come calling for him. I'm hoping that somebody possibly can knock them off because if we represent the West again, I'm not sure I want to face them in the title game.
Well, I think this MAC season is kind of shaping up a little bit to 2003.
Okay.
With maybe Toledo starting out as the NIU of 2003.
Okay.
You had their big win over an SEC West school in Arkansas. They get the Cyclones coming to town just like NIU had back in 03. I think you're looking at possibly Toledo starting off with an undefeated record, and then maybe the Huskies going into the Glass Bowl and ruining that this year for them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Iowa State, I picked them to cover only for the sake of, I figured that's too much. I think that Toledo's probably going to win the game, but it's strange for a MAC team to get 8 points at home versus a Big 12 team, because as bad as Iowa State is, they still have just as good or better players at every position that Toledo does. So I think that'll be a good game. I think Toledo's going to get their revenge. And yeah, you're right, they're going to get pretty hyped with the wins. Baby Bielema, the big red hog, has a lot of... I don't know how well he slept this week, but he needs to put his foot...
Well, he deserved that for making fun of big football.
Yeah, I know. That's part of why I figured Vuja would be chomping at the bit to get on here, because not only the Michigan State win, but you know how he likes to pick the one thing that happens negative towards the SEC in a week and turn it into absolute pandemonium. Meanwhile, he barely touched on the fact that Maryland lost by 3 touchdowns to Bowling Green.
When Vuja does come on, it's going to be about an hour discussion on SEC, Big Ten.
Nothing will ever convince him that the Big Ten isn't the greatest conference, in his opinion. He somehow has turned the fact that Ohio State is very elite and Michigan State is right on the cusp of being one of the better programs year to year. They've been in it the last couple of years, but just haven't really broke through. He likes to act like that means the entire conference is great, and that's kind of like us saying that, if NIU and Toledo are both really good this year, then the MAC is really good, and that's kind of not the truth. There's still some, the bottom of the Big Ten's got a long way to go to get to the bottom of the SEC, and that isn't even. I like to give him a hard time about it because it's fun to see how excited he gets over it. But until we see some of the like a win for the Big Ten this week for like Purdue over Virginia Tech, those types of games happen, and you start to feel a little differently. Now, if they go get drilled. Same thing with Indiana, Western Kentucky. I think Western Kentucky's going to win. And
I think so too.
And when you lose those types of games, that's where you start losing, you lose that little argument. And I understand that Ohio State is basically an SEC team in the Big Ten right now. And if you're a Buckeye hater like I know you are, you have to hope that Urban starts with how he did at Florida after he had it rolling, and then all of a sudden he had some off the field stuff, and then he decided he quit. So that's the best hope for all the other Big Ten teams.
Yeah, I think that's gonna come down the line here pretty quick.
Something.
Guys suspended already this year, and it might get swept under the rug a little bit with Ohio State to start out. But
outright,
I don't see him being there more than 5 years down the road.
No. Outright upset of the week is in that vein too. They talked about their revenge last week over Akron, and Pat Narduzzi and the Pitt Sex Panthers are going to march into Kinnick Saturday night and prevent Iowa from being an annoying 3-0 team that people start potentially ranking and talking about Saturday night football games with. I know they don't have James Conner, but there's not like Iowa hasn't. I mean, they beat Iowa State and they beat Illinois State. I think Narduzzi knows exactly how to play them. I don't think Ferentz is a good enough coach to adjust anything, and they'll beat them. I think they give me the 5.5 points for sure, but I don't think they have a better roster than them. I think that the coaching edge is the issue here, and then we might get some Pittsburgh hype, which we'll have to knock down too. We could have some really weird things in the ACC. We could have Pittsburgh and Syracuse both at 3-0, and I don't even know what to think about that.
That just seems jacked up if that happens.
Yeah, well, last weekend's game here, I don't know if I've ever felt more emotionally strange and exhausted and happy and pissed at the same time. It was it was like an out-of-body experience watching a football game where after everybody was like, the entire crowd is morose except for Notre Dame fans hopping and dancing around, and I wasn't one of those Notre Dame fans hopping and dancing around because I was dressed in Virginia stuff, not trying to act like I was a little bit happy that they won.
What is the Charlottesville take on Mike Linden?
It's mixed. I mean, there's clearly a good chunk of the fan base that is just 100%. It doesn't matter what he does, they're done. I like the fact that we got a standing O after the game. I was really worried we were going to get booing, which, if you booed them at the end of that game, that's really shitty because they did everything they could except be out of place basically in one play to lose it. And I'd seen Kaiser in the spring, and I saw him briefly when he played, in that game, and he did nothing to make you think that he was going to drop back and throw a 40-yard dart right to a guy, even though it was one-on-one coverage that's their best player. The odds of that happening or them making that call were very slim. It changed my perception of him as far as I went from the season's over to, well, if he can make that throw, I think they can probably win a lot of games. But they just seem so beat up right now. The good news is Georgia Tech runs the same stuff Navy does. It's not like they're not going to know what they're doing. They might have even spent some time on that in the off season because they had two teams they had to play, and they knew Texas and Virginia weren't exactly hard to figure out offenses. So it'll be interesting. I mean, they're going to have to score points. Georgia Tech's going to score points, but Georgia Tech hasn't played anybody. They beat the heck out of Tulane and some other nobody school. So we'll have to see. I'm optimistic. I'm rocking the Florida stuff today.
I noticed that. I like the Warfare.
And it's
coming out after.
Oh yeah, and the number one reason is because I am so pumped about their coach ripping Fred Taylor's boy, a new a-hole, about doing a throat slash, because I don't know when the last time somebody